Motor Transport USA. New York to Chicago. Detroit to St. Louis. Atlanta to Los Angeles. New Orleans to Denver. San Francisco back to Chicago. And all our cities in between. 4 lanes. 6 lanes. As modern as next year's calendar. The best that money can buy for a nation that insists on nothing less than the best. This, too, is Motor Transport USA. Agricultural America. North, south, east, and west. Rural roads city people seldom see and never travel, except by accident or detour. Some of it surfaced, medium or low-grade surfacing, 10, 20, 30 years old and more. More of it, 1.5 million miles, unsurfaced. The same narrow, dusty roads that ran past farmhouse doors in the days of horses and wagons. Subject to the same washouts, the rutting, the mud holes. Year after year, the story is the same. Too often told in red ink on farm ledger books. Too often told in days missed at school by farm children. And sometimes in tragedy, when medical help is bogged down in mud holes or roads that are relics of the horse and buggy days. What are the factors that have brought about these conditions? And what are the forces that can change them? This film offers a pictorial answer to that question.
We'll call this Dexter County, Midland, USA. A century ago, this was log cabin country, history book America. Name it yourself, your own state, which it could very well be, your own county by another name, or your own township where you live and work, where you're raising and educating your children. As it happens, Dexter County is where I live. Town of Greenville, as pleasant a county seat as you'll find anywhere in these United States. This is where I work, the town's best and only newspaper. Also star reporter, chief editorial writer, and in emergencies, typesetter. Life never gets dull for a country editor. There's always something doing. Like, for instance, the question of country roads. That's a big space getter in my paper of prime importance to the people around here. Farmers mostly, and important to farmers and ranchers everywhere, and business people too. It's a true story I'm going to tell, except for a few unimportant changes, like names of people and places, for instance, and pretty much the way I told it in my paper. Even before the American farmer retired his horses in favor of his truck, his tractor, and his family car, getting a good all-weather road past his place has been one of his biggest problems. But the real seriousness of that problem to the individual farmer didn't hit me until about 2 years ago. I hadn't seen Alf Moore in town lately. Alf's a pretty well-to-do farmer near the other end of the county. And I decided to drive over to his place for a little visit. About a quarter mile from the end of his property, there was Alf, his boy George, and a couple of neighbors, hard at it. I thought it mighty strange, Alf Moore taking time off from the farm that time of year to go fooling around fixing roads. And he was fixing that road on his own, even using his own equipment. It seems Alf Moore and other farmers in the neighborhood had been complaining for a long time about their road, begging for quick repairs, especially during rainy seasons, or better yet, graveling or hardtop surfacing. but they got nowhere. Hauling crops and produce to market, bringing in farm supplies, general travel over this road was slow and uncertain. In bad weather or right after bad weather, rain or snow, too often impassable for trucks and the school bus. As I wanted to hear more about this rural road problem, I invited myself to stay for supper.
Fact is, we use this road only when we have to. Driving any distance, we head for the main highway, US 40.
You mean you go 3 or 4 miles out of your way, maybe more, just to get in the surfaced road?
Oh, it's worth it. Smoother riding, easier on the car or truck, cheaper in the end. Easier on the nerves, too. Can't say we like it. Too much traffic. You know how 40 is these days, and it takes us too far out of our way.
Suppose your road was put in decent shape, either fixed up or surfaced.
Well, that's a pipe dream, Wes. But if it ever comes true, we'd use it and stay off 40.
Why do you call it a pipe dream? Why hasn't it been put in decent shape?
One word, money. It takes money and there's no money to be had.
Nonsense. The richest country in the world and no money for decent roads?
I don't know about the rest of the country or the next county, for that matter. All I know is that right here in Greenville Township, Dexter County, there's just not enough money set aside to keep our local roads in good condition.
A fine state of affairs, I must say, in this day and age.
No use getting excited about it, Wes. I used to carry on about it, holler around, and beat on desks. Nothing ever happened, so I quit.
And so you quit?
That's right, I just gave up and quit hollering. I got to be practical about this, Wes. That stretch of road out there is in the worst shape it's ever been. A real danger spot. It needs fixing now, right now. I just bought some brand new equipment that's got to be hauled in over that road in the next few days, and next week I got crops to haul to market and a load of hogs. It had to be fixed before winter anyhow. I just can't afford to take a chance on having road trouble. As far as I can see, there's only one thing to do, and I'm doing it.
Disgraceful. The next issue of the Greenville Press had less in it about local society news and more about local roads. Front page story, the lead editorial inside. Created quite a stir in town and all over the county, and for all I know, in the state capital. Ray Oliver, our county road commissioner, came by. I thought he'd be put out about the Alf Moore story and editorial. After all, it was an indirect criticism of Ray. All he said was, "Keep it up, Doc." That's all. But it seemed to me there was a lot of extra meaning in the way he said it, and then hurried on. During the next few days, a dozen farmers rode in. Some phoned in, toll charges and all, saying for me to come out to their place if I wanted to have a look at some really bad roads and find out just how much roads meant to farmers nowadays. On my first free day, I set out for Cal Withers' farm. Cal's wife had written a letter I thought rated some looking into. Some pretty pertinent remarks on the farm roads problem. Besides, it always being a personal pleasure seeing Lucy Withers. The road running past the Withers farm, Route 157, was first built about 30 years ago. Never much of a highway even when new, and made much worse these last few years by heavy traffic and seasonal rain. Cal and Lucy Withers have been getting away from grain farming the past few years and into dairying. They liked dairy farming and wanted to stay in it, but they had a serious farm-to-market road problem. Cal's only comment on his bad road situation was, "Well, that's a farmer's life for you." He had a fine herd of high-producing dairy cows that could bring in a substantial return, everything else being equal. But down in Cal's corner of the county, everything was not equal. He had that beaten-up road to contend with, and as he put it, mighty little to contend it with. I knew what that meant to a dairy farmer, especially in bad weather. Either no pickup of his milk, or time away from his other work trying to make delivery himself. I was very interested in finding out what his wife had to say on the subject. Lucy Withers had been one of the best teachers we'd ever had in our township school, and she'd never lost her interest in civic affairs. She was active in local and county farm organizations and pretty much represented the woman's angle when it came to farmers' problems.
But to exist as dairy farmers, we've got to sell our milk, which means getting it to market. These last 2 years, the margin of difference between profit and loss was our day-to-day weather and the amount of heavy traffic on our road. And the same thing goes for bus pickup service and whether our children get to school. Town and county officials tell me there's no money available to build us a better road or fix the one we have. We can't just pack up our things, pick up our farm, and move off somewhere to a good all-weather road. No one says there's not enough money. They say it's not available. Well, I want to know why it's not available for people like us. I want to know what I can do personally to make it available. And I intend to find out.
After that rather whirlwind visit to the Withers farm, I went further into the county road problem, really dug deep into it, at the suggestion of Lucy Withers. I kept the subject alive in every issue of the paper, with stories, editorials, and all kinds of highway statistics. Letters kept coming in, and I published some of them. Before I knew it, I had a rural road department in my paper. Incidentally, circulation went up, not only around Greenville, but all through the county and outside. If ever there was a grassroots issue, this was it. These were my people, and they were beginning to stir to the faint sound of trumpets in the air. Far off, perhaps, but coming closer and louder. Whenever I had free time, I went out on private inspection tours. I found that the farm road problem went further than gravel and dirt roads. It took in certain types of surfaced roads, like the one that ran by Fred Dixon's place, for instance. Originally, back in the 20s, Fred's road was paved to support maximum axle loads of 16,000 pounds with only an occasional truck as heavy as 24,000 pounds gross. Like all concrete roads of those days, it was built as a permanent road. At the dedication ceremonies, the main speaker said, "This highway," says he, "will stand as long as the pyramids of Egypt." I was there, and I heard him 30 years ago. Last I heard tell, the pyramids of Egypt are still in pretty good shape. As for Fred Dixon's road, 59A, well, the best I can say for it is that it's still passable. But for how much longer? A day or two later, I had a surprise visitor. I knew what was on her mind before she said a word. She wanted to know how much longer I intended to study the farm road problem before I did anything about moving toward a solution. Well, frankly, that kind of stumped me, and I didn't exactly have an answer. Lucy was all for direct action right then and there. Next thing I knew, we were on our way out of my office, scurrying across the street, headed for Ray Oliver's office in the county courthouse. I didn't even have a chance to tip him off about Lucy Withers being in town and on the warpath. To say I was surprised is putting it mildly. I was flabbergasted when I found that Ray Oliver was actually glad to see Lucy and me, and not at all touchy about talking to us, even though he had been getting it from all sides on the question of local road improvements. The fact is that without most of us realizing it, he had been fighting the improved farm road battle for a long time. But he'd gone as far as he could. The rest, he said, was up to us local people affected by inadequate and neglected roads.
Highway officials can't do the job by themselves or even get it underway. The chief impetus must come from you farmers and townspeople. And I include city dwellers who are interested in city street improvements. Local roads are a local problem, and nobody's going to do more than you are willing to do yourself to get the road past your farm or through your town or city streets into good all-weather shape. So it all boils down to a rather simple objective. you must get a larger share of the road tax dollar allocated for local roads and city streets. Unfortunately, there are many farmers who are inclined to believe that nothing can be accomplished through their own efforts. They are wrong. Individual effort doesn't mean much. Combined effort means a great deal. You'll come up against disappointments, and you'll meet discouragement along the way. But remember this, what has been done can be done. It's up to you.
During the next few weeks, using the Greenville press office as headquarters, the campaign for better farm roads really got going. Wesley Underwood, Alf Moore, and I were the organizing committee, with Mr. Underwood as chairman. We soon discovered that other towns in the county and throughout the state had the same or similar road problems. They asked us to come to speak to them at their halls and schoolhouses. Our first open meeting took place on a Saturday afternoon in the Consolidated School. Farmers and farmers' wives from all over Dexter County. The townspeople of Greenville as expected, but surprisingly, people from other towns. This was really democracy in action. It was an informal and neighborly occasion. Friends passing the time of day. Farm and family news the main topics of conversation until the meeting settled down to business. Wesley Underwood, as chairman of the Farm Roads Committee, was the first speaker and informal chairman. He filled in the general background of the main topic on the agenda, the rural highways, and then brought the discussion down to the specific issues on the local level.
And so, by digging back through old records and newspaper files, we discovered something that many of you may remember at first hand.
That when the state's main highway improvement and construction program was put into effect, farmers on dirt, slag, and gravel roads were promised road improvements and new roads, quote, as fast as possible as the need is demonstrated and when funds are available, end quote. That was 30 years ago and more. In most cases, you farmers are still making the best of a bad bargain along the same unsurfaced and badly neglected roads. Today, new road programs are in the works, and history repeats itself. Farmers are again being assured that the sinkholes, the mud, the cave-ins on rural roads and bridges will be taken care of, quote, as fast as possible as the need is demonstrated and when funds are available, end quote. Well, we don't intend to stand by another 30 years and watch history repeat itself. Too many of us may not be around at that time. Reconstruction of main roads still in pretty good passable condition. Construction of city-to-city highways, all right, we'll go along with that program under one condition, that first the promise of 30 years ago be fulfilled, that out-of-date, neglected rural roads be put into good all-weather condition and new farm-to-market roads be built where needed. We say the time is now. Let's get something done in our lifetime.
Most money for building and maintaining roads comes from motor vehicle tax revenues, gasoline taxes, license fees. That represents a powerful lot of money paid in by us farmers over the years. We want to know where that money's gone. We know where it hasn't gone, in amounts you can sneeze at, that is.
All right, Al, you tell us, where has all that money gone?
Everett Purdy, that's exactly what I aim to do. Most of that money, paid in partly by you and me, most of it goes for what's called state primary roads. The kind of road, Everett, you probably ain't been on since you got rid of your Stanley steamer and went back to your horse and buggy. All we want, and we've just got to have it, is a bigger and fairer share of the state's gas taxes and motor vehicle license fees. And that's not asking too much.
I would like to ask a question.
What is your question, please?
Does your program call for paved highways for all of the farm areas of Dexter County?
No, it does not. We're not asking for high-type surfacing for all our farm roads. To do so would be impractical, foolhardy, and unrealistic. Such roads cost from $70,000 a mile up. $250,000 a mile is common. Some, the multi-lane superhighways, run as much as $3 million a mile. We farmers don't need, we're not asking for, and we don't want superhighways and high-priced roads.
Your Farm Roads Committee, whose guest I am here today, is asking for a system of farm roads that will cost about $17,000 a mile. Such roads would be 18 feet wide with a 6-inch stone and gravel base and a 2-inch asphalt top. A road like that will easily handle ordinary farm traffic. We need such roads in Dexter County. We should have them, and we could have them. But, in my opinion, it is not necessary that every farm in Dexter County have that kind of road at $17,000 a mile. Where there is less travel, satisfactory all-weather roads can be built for $7,000 a mile, or even as low as $5,000 a mile.
Mr. Underwood, how, may I ask, do you propose to finance this scheme?
If you don't mind, Mr. Tinsman, I prefer the word program or plan. We propose a larger share of motor vehicle taxes and fees. That money should not be raised by increasing our property taxes or by issuing bonds, which would be an obligation against our property. It should be raised by user charges on motor vehicles, using all our highways. You farmers have been paying those user charges a good many years now for the privilege of using inferior roads, and it's your turn to get some of it back. I think Alf Moore has some figures on that point.
According to state tax figures, passenger cars and farm trucks today are paying a good deal more than their share of the highway building and repair bill. Anybody wants a breakdown of figures on it, I got them right here. Now, I own a 10.5 truck, and so do most of you folks. And you want to know something? It's our little old pickup truck, the trademark of the American farmer today, that's paying a great big share of the country's truck tax bill and getting the least in return. Here are some statements on the subject from some pretty reliable sources. The Ohio Farm Bureau Federation says that heavy trucks of over 20 tons in weight pay 8 cents per 100-ton miles of road use. And the typical farm duty-size truck pays nearly 26 cents per 100-ton miles of road use, more than 3 times as much. And automobiles pay even more. A representative of the National Grange told a committee in Congress, and I'll quote him, "A farmer who has to go over a few miles of impassable roads to get to these fine paved roads may be just as much isolated as he would be if there were not a mile of paved road in his county." I've got more stuff like that from engineers, state highway officials, a Senate subcommittee out in California, etc., and so on. If you want to see them, stop by Wes Underwood's office, or let us know by mail and we'll send them along.
Mr. Moore, are you attacking commercial trucks?
Oh, no. No, we're not saying commercial trucks should be ruled off the road. Everyone agrees that trucks are an important part of the transportation setup in America. But we are raising certain questions about trucks. How big they should be, and how heavy loads they should carry, how fast they should go, and how much they should pay for use of the public highways.
The next issue of the Greenville Press carried the full text of the resolution adopted by the meeting. Be it therefore resolved that the following program of highway legislation be recommended at the next session of the state legislature. 1. Laws to adequately protect pavement and bridges against heavy loads in excess of their capacity, and the limitation of axle loads at the 18,000-pound weight recommended by the American Association of State Highway Officials and endorsed by many official agencies. And 2, vigorous enforcement of the truck weight laws. 3, a greater share of the money from state-collected gasoline taxes and license fees for rural road improvement.
I don't say we formed a new political party, elected our own governor and state legislature, and presto, every farmer in the state found a brand new hardtop road running past his place the following Sunday morning. Nothing of the sort. Road improvements don't come that easy or that fast.
But there were tangible results, first on a town and county level, then on a state level. We called on our state highway commissioner and stimulated him into giving more time and attention to the highway needs of us farmers. Then the governor appointed a new rural highway committee to study conditions and make recommendations directly to him. We joined hands with city people who have similar troubles about streets. Net result of all this, at its last session, the state legislature earmarked an additional $10 million of motor vehicle revenues to be spent each year exclusively on farm roads.
Well, sir, that's pretty much the story of what happened down here in Dexter County. The story's not over, of course. Properly speaking, it'll never be over, long as there are people's needs to be filled. In this case, good roads. And as long as people have to find ways to get those needs filled. The main thing is we found that the phrase, "we the people," is more than a political cliche out of the preamble of the Constitution. We the people turned out to be a living, day-to-day reality, much more influential and powerful than we ever dreamed.
We did it ourselves, which shows it can be done. Not only here, but any place where a man and woman can stand up and have a say in what's going on. Plus a vote to enforce it. As long as we keep it that way, we'll do all right. Down your way, the same as here.